The next property I'm going to talk about is referred to as the multiplication property. And I've already written out an example here that I want to use in describing this property. And I'm using the same symbol for multiplication that I used before, the little dot symbol that you see between the two fractions. And I've written 1 divided by x multiplied with or times 2 divided by x. Now let's say someone asked you to write that in a slightly more simple way to give the final simplified form. Well, what would you do if these weren't x's? What would you do if it was just completely numbers? Let's say we replaced x with another number like 3. Let's say you had 1/3 times 2/3. Well, you would first multiply those together and get 1 times 2 is 2, 3 times 3 is 9. And then you would look to see if there was anything else you could simplify and get a whole number. And in this case, you can't get a whole number. 2 divides by itself to give you 1, but 2 won't go into 9 equal number of times. You would get 4.5, which won't give you a whole number. Now, if this had been some other numbers that gave you a number that was divisible by 2, you would have been able to. So this is as far as you can go there. Well, the same thing, just as here we did with the 3's, where we said 1 times 2 is 2, 3 times 3 is 9, we're going to do the same thing up here, and in the top we'll get the same exact thing. 1 times 2 is 2. And in the bottom, in the denominator, x times x is just x squared. We saw that in previous examples, just like the two numbers multiplied by itself. 2 times 2 is the same thing as 2 squared. X times x is the same thing as x squared. And so the simplified form that we arrive at is 2 divided by x squared. And now we have one nice little term. We don't have things being added that don't need to be, or we don't have things still needing to be multiplied. We've taken it that final step. This wasn't a very complicated example, but we don't really need a complicated example to make this point. The point here is simply that if you have something, if you're given a problem where something could be multiplied into it, and there's no reason not to, that you're not trying to get rid of it in any way, then doing so will make it one step more simple than what you started with. 2 over x squared is more simple than 1 over x times 2 over x. It's just a more simplified form. And again, keep in mind, the whole reason we're doing this, the whole reason we're attempting to find ways to simplify these expressions, is it's a precursor or a beginning step that we must go through in a lot of the problems we'll be given before we can actually solve the problem. So the end goal will always be to solve the problem, but the beginning of that, of reaching that goal, will oftentimes be simplifying the expressions that make up the equations that you're given.